Some of you know I have a special affinity for the Benedictine sisters up in Clyde. This is their beautiful, beautiful chapel where women have been worshiping together and singing for 105 years. And the first time that I went up there, up to Northwest Missouri, I had been in prayers at lunchtime, and I had been in prayers at evening time, and I had been at first watch prayer, and I went back to my room to finally have a cup of coffee when I heard the bells ringing again. And I thought, but I was just there, and I haven't finished my coffee. Big gulp, off I went. Because I remembered that on this day, there was prayer at 7:30, as well as 6:30 in the morning, before one has had one's cup of coffee. And so I went in and slipped into what had become my regular pew, my safe seat that after 3 worship services was already my seat. And I looked around. No sisters. And I thought, there were bells. Something's happening. What's going on? And then here they came in procession, in a formal procession, not their way, from the back. It was a feast day. And here they came from the back, and they filed in past me to their seats. And I realized what was different when I saw the priest. There would be Eucharist. I took a deep breath, and if you're not familiar and you don't know, non-Roman Catholics don't get to take Eucharist, especially if all 20 people in the room know that you are a Protestant lady pastor. And you especially don't get to take it when you are with the Benedictine Sisters of the Perpetual Adoration, because the Eucharist is at the center of their life. These women, for generations now, have made altar bread for Roman Catholic parishes. They make communion bread as their work. They're serious about this stuff. And so I took a deep breath and I thought, okay, this is good for you. This is a reminder to you as to why you and our folks at Community Christian Church work so hard each and every week to make sure that we spread the table a little bit wider, to make sure that everybody has a seat and there is a place and everyone is welcome and no one feels excluded. And I thought, you've been in this situation before. You know what's going to happen. You know how this is going to play out. Everything is going to be fine. Until it wasn't fine. I remained on the kneeler as the sisters filed forward to receive communion from the priest, who is standing at the front behind the altar. And the next thing I knew, I was getting a little angry. I was getting a little frustrated. I maybe even had a tear, and suddenly Sister Virginia appears behind me. Sister Virginia sat behind me every prayer service before and every prayer service after, and Sister Virginia is older than God herself. And Sister Virginia comes and she raises me up off of my kneeler, and she put her beautiful hands around me, and she said, I'm so sorry. I'm so, so sorry. And her little voice broke in mine, and she says, I'm so sorry for us to be separated in this moment. You know that this is not our way, right? Because the way of Benedictines is to open and be welcoming and to share with everybody who shows up. This is not our way. Yet this is not ours to change, she said. And I'm so sorry. But having you here, sitting here in front of me, has reminded me of how far apart we are and how broken the world really is. And Sister Virginia cried, and I cried, and the sisters filed out, and I cried some more. And I don't tell you that story so that you'll think badly of my beloved sisters of the Perpetual Adoration, or of their devotion to the ancient ways, or to the Vatican, or to any of that. I tell you because this story is such a powerful reminder, to me at least, that it is only when we are gathered together with people who think differently than we do, when they are sitting right in front of us, only then do we really have an opportunity to see how far apart we are. And I don't just mean Roman Catholics and Protestant clergywomen. I don't just mean lay folks and those who take monastic vows. I don't mean just conservative Republicans and the Green Party folks. I don't just mean folks who live in rural America and the growing number of us who live in urban centers. Those distances, our polarization as humanity is wider than it maybe ever has been. And when the world is really very small, we find ourselves often so isolated in a very diverse planet. Have you ever traveled abroad and found yourself in the minority? In France, and you don't speak any French and they don't care? Ever been in Chinatown in San Francisco? I was on a bus once in rush hour in Chinatown in San Francisco. I had no idea what was going on. And for those of us with white skin, those of us who speak primarily English, it can really change your perspective. But it doesn't just have to be on a scale that big. And I am not so naive as to suggest that we start with those closest with us, with our family members who put a different political sign in their yard than you do. Oftentimes, we are not willing or able to disrupt the family systems that are so entrenched and fragile. And so we avoid confrontation with those family members whose political or religious views are different than our own. And yet, if we can't have those conversations with our own family members, how on earth can we have those conversations as a nation, or even as Christians? How can we live in a place that we call community if we aren't really in community with one another? Look around the room. Look, not me, look around. Do you see a face that you see a lot, but you don't know that person's name? If you're a regular church member, is there somebody here who you think, I see that person every week, but I just don't know their name? I know that this is true because I'm hearing more of you tell me that. And now you're too embarrassed to say, oh, I don't know Jan Markison's name, and I see her, but she's normally at 8:30, and so I really can't come up with her name, but I'm sure glad she's the elder this morning because that puts her name in the bulletin. There were about 50 of us at 8:30, and there are 100, 125 of us here this morning, and the fact that we don't know one another's names. And I get it, we're too big of a congregation to really know everybody, and the multiple services makes that harder. But if we can't begin to put the divide a little closer together, if we can't begin to put the separation aside, how are we going to do it outside of this place if we can't do it right here? So over the next month, and someone at 8:30 told me there are 38 days until Election Day, so let's just go with that. 38 days. What if each week we made an effort to know someone new? What if we began to close that gap right here in our own congregation? Maybe you're a regular 10:30 person, and you go, I don't know who those folks are at 8:30. I'm going to give it a try. Ooh, puts us outside of our comfort zone because we got to get up early. May not get the New York Times completely read. Okay. What if we invited somebody we didn't know out to lunch afterwards and actually had lunch with them? Now, I'm not talking about a moment of gathering where I come to Arthur and I say, good morning, good to see you. That's not making community. That's no different than being kind to the grocery store checkout girl. It's just not. I know nothing about Arthur, except he has on a suit and tie. That's it. And his name is, and maybe we don't even get to know one another's names. Because all I said was, good morning, glad to see you. That was all. What if, in order to put us a little closer, we counted one week. We represented 7 counties a couple weeks ago. We had children. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was, Jan Jones, we had 15 kids from 5 counties and adults from 7, counting both services. That is really spread out. And look at us. We are equally as spread out in this service. So don't be surprised next Sunday if this section is closed off to move us closer together. We're far enough apart the other 6 days of the week. Surely we can sit by one another on Sunday morning. That's not just about y'all. I know some of you got to sit over here, and some of you got used to sitting over there when you had babies in the cry room and all that. I know all that. And yes, I'm suggesting that you sit somewhere different. Change your perspective. Get to know somebody that you don't really know. And some of you are going to be upset with me about that. That's my seat. That's my seat. And quite frankly, I like it when George Flanagan sits right there because I know where he's going to be. And I can keep an eye on Myra Christopher when she sits right there. So this is about me too. And that's exactly our problem. Our problem is we are unwilling to give up our seat at the table. The place where we are most comfortable. The place where we are right and we know it. And so what happens if we are willing to risk a change of perspective? And for those of us who may get a little nervous about changing our seats, what's that say about us? What is God trying to do with us with that? What is that saying to us, and what is it saying about us? Now, I'm kind of stuck with my seat up here, I got to say. So here's my compromise. In the next 38 days, there is one particular television channel. It's a news channel. I won't say which one it is. That makes me want to vomit to listen to. Over the next 38 days, I promise to listen for as long as I can to what they have to say. And not just listen, but really, really listen. To really, really listen to get a different perspective. Because what is it saying about us if we aren't willing to open ourselves up to a different perspective? Sister Virginia and I are very, very different. But at the end of the day, we aren't. We are just women trying to find our way in the world. And isn't that what each of us are doing? Each of us here and each of us in the line at the grocery store. And if we can't do it well here, how in the world are we going to do it out there? If we can't have the courage and the bravery to gain a different perspective in our own safe place of community, how can we expect to extend the width and the breadth of the table outside of this safe place? And if we're not, because as people of Jesus, as followers of Jesus, we are called to be more than just being in our safe place. Jesus calls us up out of our seats to be more than simply Protestants against Catholics. We are called to be more than liberals versus conservatives. We are called to be more than 8:30 or 10:30. We are called to be children of God, made equal with one another. We are heirs of a promise, and we are challenged to be more than comfortable in our own seat. And if we actually change our perspective, if we open ourselves up to seeing the world in a new way, God might actually be able to do something with us. And if we do that, if we open ourselves up to the new, to the uncomfortable, to the stuff that makes us crazy, we might actually see God at work and asking us to be a part of what God is doing. And we might discover God will meet us if we get up out of our seats, that God will meet us there. And maybe, if we're lucky, God's name will be Sister Virginia. May it be so. May it be so for us. Amen.